All right, let me tell you all about our guest today. She's quite impressive. She's a Southern original, a critically acclaimed singer-songwriter from Hickman, Kentucky, and across 3 albums, Old Time Feeling, Teeth Marks, and her newest release, Planting by the Signs. Have you guys heard this album yet? She's carved out a body of work that's fearless, poetic, and unflinchingly honest. She won the Americana Emerging Artist of the Year in 2023, which, humble brag, I'm nominated for this year. And she has become a beloved voice in the folk and alt country scenes, blending stories of sexuality, class, and rural life with a grit and grace that's all her own. So everybody, please welcome SG Goodman. SG, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for those nice words.
They were all true. They weren't nice. They were just facts. And I know you were laying in the road just a few hours ago, trying to fix your van, and hopefully no one will light a match around you, or you didn't get diesel on you. No.
Or maybe they should. Maybe they should light a cigarette and throw it under my van right now. There's a pool of diesel fuel under it currently, so yeah.
But you were the one down there checking it out and trying to fix it.
I was,
and
that
would not be me. No one would want me down there doing that.
Well, I did my best, but my dad was he went to auto diesel school here in Nashville, actually.
Oh wow!
And I haven't called him about it yet because I feel a little ashamed.
He would expect that you'd be able to figure it out.
Something. Or would have figured some way, somebody to come and get it. And, I've already, there's like a time frame when you're not disappointing your father.
Yeah.
And I'm way past that right now. So.
I have a feeling you'll figure it out. We determined it was a small plastic piece, but.
Yes.
The very inexpensive piece that will probably end up being
very expensive
an expensive problem.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I'm glad you're here, and I hope you get her up and running before your next show, which is the day after tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know if, I named my van Bursa.
Okay.
After my medical condition, bursitis. And ever since I did that, I thought it was a cool name. I like calling her Big Bursa, And she's sick right now, y'all. She's infected a little bit. And I wouldn't suggest anyone call their vehicle after like a medical condition, because you end up
manifest destiny.
Yeah, you end up. She's broken down on a road right now. So I did it to myself, really. You
did not.
Yeah.
I think there's treatments for bursitis. We can get her some physical therapy.
Exactly.
And she'll be up and running once again. And you'll make it to that show. But yeah, if anyone happens to just throw a match in the direction of Bursa, we didn't see it, and we won't tell on you. We'll just file an insurance claim.
Exactly. And I've got great insurance, so if anybody's willing,
all right,
I'll give you the address.
I'm kind of jumping around now, but you mentioned naming her Bursa, which is a fact I did not know before this. You didn't tell me this backstage, but I also learned you have a cat, or you had a cat.
Yeah, I have a
Dewey.
cat. And Dewey is his whole name. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
The name Dewey, short for Aunt Dewey Sausage.
Yes.
And is this a Cajun cat
he's
from
my
New Orleans?
raging,
What's his story?
No, he's not, but he's a raging Cajun. But the thing is about Dewey, he's 11 years old. He's a very odd cat. He's deaf, so he doesn't know his name.
Oh.
We do jazz hands. That's how you get his attention, or you got to stomp really hard, and then he'll feel it or something. But yeah, he's completely deaf. I can vacuum this cat. He can take baths. He's a great car rider. Really an interesting thing. But he's a little freak. He didn't jump until he was 2 years old.
Well, not because of the deafness. Obviously,
I don't know
those
what's
are correlated.
wrong. Yeah, I'm still figuring him out. Actually, 11 years in.
Have you always been a cat person?
Yeah, but I am a cat person. I think I love cats. I like dogs more. I will say that. Or I'm like a farm girl, so I feel like cats they're kind of like, they're work animals, you know? They should have a job. And this cat literally is living with, he can barely hunt a mouse, you know, because he's deaf. So he's kind of no use to me, and I have to get new furniture every so often because of him. But I do love him.
That's important.
Yeah.
That he provides companionship. And
Exactly.
receives
Yeah.
your love.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, well, I hope I get to meet Dewey someday.
You can.
Where is Dewey right now?
He's probably in his man cave, which is my garage, which is where his little shit box is. And he goes in there and doesn't like, you know, it's his alone time. I would imagine he's in, his man cave currently.
Living the life.
Living the life.
Not working on your van.
Not working on my van, not paying any rent, you know?
Well, you say you grew up as a farm girl in Kentucky, so tell me what it was like growing up in Hickman, Kentucky, and how that kind of agrarian life shaped who you are in your music.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a funny thing because now I currently live in Murray, Kentucky, which is where I went to college. I ended up buying a house there. I guess I travel like we do all over the world and the country. I'm in cities enough, and I love cities, but my hometown of Hickman is the furthest western tip of Kentucky, right on the Mississippi River. And I wasn't raised with a stoplight or fast food. You had to drive 15 minutes, you know, to get to a town where there was fast food or your local Walmart or anything like that. So when I moved to Murray, and because I grew up learning how to drive on the farm, I didn't know traffic laws. Mm-hmm. So stoplights, even though it's a really small town too, it felt huge to me. So, yeah, if that sums it up, if you can get a picture from that, there's nothing there basically but good people. So,
do you feel like when you're out on the road and touring all these different cities and meeting all these different communities that you have that pull back to Kentucky and to kind of the less busy, less traffic stops kind of environment?
You know, I'm pretty adaptable. I feel like I can navigate cities really well for a country girl, and I appreciate so much about them in the sense, you know, like say I'm in New York City. I graduated in a class of 56 people. Just to think that that one building that I'm in has more people than my entire hometown is mind-blowing. Right. And I love that. But as far as being pulled back to where I'm from, I did one of those, you know, I gave my genes up to Big Brother in one of those little tests recently. And it turns out that my people have been kind of right where I'm at, and actually in this part of the world, kind of central Tennessee, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, a little bit into northern Alabama, forever. Like, I feel like my ancestors call me back here, you know?
Yeah, well, I feel that in your music, that it's
you.
so beautifully sewn throughout. I mean, just the title of your newest album alone, Planting by the Signs, that has a whole science behind it. I mean, people used to sow their crops according to celestial placements, and I feel like I learned so much about just the scenery of where you're from. I'll use another song from that record as an example, like Snapping Turtle. If you haven't heard this album, it's just such a beautiful study on your upbringing, your objective yet emotional lens of where you're from and that community. But these kids are beating up a snapping turtle, and you ask, can I have a lick? And only the way that you can form these lyrics. And then you end up turning it on the kids and running off with the snapping turtle. And there's like this compassion for nature throughout all your music, for the land, for the creatures. And I'm like, oh, like, do you identify with the snapping turtle a little bit? And
yeah, well, it didn't ask to be beat up on, you know.
Right.
And it's and also, you know, I was a little bit hesitant to put you know, me whipping some kids' asses on my record. But I was raised that way. You know, a lot of people are not. I understand completely that a lot of people weren't raised by getting whippings and stuff, but I was. It was culturally acceptable and culturally prevalent. And so I'm sure if anyone drove by as I was probably around 14, and these kids were probably around 11, 10, something like that, and saw me whipping up on these kids, not fazed, you know, not fazed at all. So, but as far as like, yeah, that song has a lot of special meaning for me because I also talk about, kind of use the snapping turtle as an analogy for someone I grew up with who's in the next half of the song after the snapping turtle, where I tried the best I could to kind of portray the imagery as my friend didn't ask to be beat up on by life, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also just the appearance of a snapping turtle, like they're kind of presented in this way that is a very tough exterior and kind of menacing,
Mm-hmm.
but that's no fault of their own. And
Yeah.
I mean, I heard that, and I think your compassion just comes through, and
Thank you.
your love for the preservation of nature. Satellite is another song that I just love, and it's like even looking at the night sky, we can't be sure that we're not wishing on something that's artificial, you
Yeah.
know? So I think the poetry in your music is largely in part to your intelligence and your observation, but it's so cool to see how you've been able to really funnel your unique experience growing up in Kentucky and with your perspective into your music. And it makes me feel like I've been there with you. It's
Aw.
just super vivid
Thank you.
and beautiful. And I feel like that's been consistent throughout all your work. And the other Kentucky relationship I want to talk about is Jim James of My Morning Jacket. And like, did you guys find each other through that kinship of being Kentucky folk?
Yeah, we did in a really very happenstance kind of way. I think this would have been in 2000. I feel like 2017. I was asked to do a project for Kentucky Natural Lands Trust, which is an organization that goes in and they work with landowners and then they preserve large amounts of forests. They actually have protected the largest amount of old growth forest in the state of Kentucky. There's one actually in Tennessee too. There's a Tennessee Lands Trust. And the other organization we were working with was Pine Mountain Settlement School. And sorry if I'm mansplaining, but a long time ago during, certain schools, and I'm sure there are schools like this in Tennessee too, but in the Appalachian Mountains, they would have schools built that taught different trades and crafts and different things to educate people in the mountains. And a lot of educational things are still happening in these schools in Kentucky. There's Hindman School, there's Pine Mountain Settlement School, there's a few other ones, but I'm not going to be able to remember their names. But anyway, we were asked to, a lot of different Kentucky artists were asked to come to Pine Mountain and record in this old church that's at the settlement school. And I'm talking about everyone from Wendellberry to Bell Hooks, Silas House. So it wasn't just, musicians. It was also like some of our greatest writers in the state of Kentucky. And another person who was asked to contribute was Jim James. And I was asked to do this by a Kentucky artist named Daniel Martin Moore. And while I was there, I heard Daniel and Joan Shelley. I don't know if you know her. She's another great Kentucky artist, but talking about Jim. And I realized, I was like, oh, I have a mutual contact there. And driving back home from the mountain, I was like, I'm going to work on some demos, and I'm going to get the nerve to ask Daniel to pass these along to Jim. And this would be in 2018. I got a wild hair, and even though I own a house in Murray, I had a roommate that was helping cover the mortgage, and I moved to Nashville and it ended up being 6.5 months. But right before I moved here that October, I sent those demos to Daniel, and I had to get a job here. I was working at Moss Tacos as the soup girl.
It's good soup.
It was good soup, hardest job I've ever had in the food industry. So hard.
What made it so hard?
It just the volume. I mean, there were days where literally for my serving shift, I would get there at 7 in the morning, do the prep, and then I would start serving at 11 and start my in prep at 4. There were some days where I didn't leave that kitchen from 11 to 4. It was just straight, serving hundreds of soups in a day. It was crazy. But anyway, it was outside having a Coke before my serving shift, and I looked down at my phone, and I got an email linking Jim and I together on an email, and that was December of that year.
He's so wonderful, and he loves you and speaks so highly of you.
This episode of Salute the Songbird is brought to you by Bearded Man Coffee, elevating coffee from cafe to kitchen to campsite. Follow at Bearded Man Coffee on socials.
It was such a beautiful body of work, and I love that you had the nerve and believed in yourself enough to ask him to do that, because, you had so much going on at that point, like so many things that were taking your energy and time away, that you could have kind of just been like, I got soup to serve, soup to sling, and not advocate for yourself. But that's what you got to do.
I was slinging soup because I was an idiot, and that was my first year I owned my house in Murray, and I didn't escrow in my property taxes and things like that. And so as soon as I moved here that October, I got a letter in the mail saying what my property taxes and insurance for the house would be, and I could get a job a lot quicker here. So that's why I had only intended to stay here a month, but I got a job where I could make enough money to pay my house insurance and property taxes, and that's why I was here so long.
So you needed that email.
I needed that email. A funny side note was who's now my publicist. He's British, and he was telling me, he was like, babe, I know you really want Jim James to produce your album, but if you don't hear from him soon, you should just go ahead and make it. And that was on a Friday night, and it was that next Monday that I got that email.
That's so awesome.
It's
and
crazy.
So deserved.
Thank you.
He's such a great songwriter and artist, and just through and through, one of those artists that's going to be around forever. And I think you both make music for the right reasons. And you just told me when we were chatting that your relationship is obviously still very strong because you're introducing them into the ACL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. They're, so deserved. But, I was asked to do that and got to tell them how proud I was of them. So that was really special.
So for the category that I'm nominated in this year that you won, they did a telecast, and we're watching it, and SG's sitting at a table saying, and the nominees for Emerging Americana Act are, and she's sitting with a plate of Hush Puppies in front of her, just chill as ever. And you also did a similar kind of style video for My Morning Jacket.
I got a thing with, hitting up the local dives in Murray, Kentucky before I get on, my
A national
phone.
telecast.
Yeah, exactly. A national telecast. Yeah, that one was at Rudy's Diner, a little meet and three in Murray. And then I did my ACL well wishes and at our local Dairy Queen, which everybody says is the best in the world. I don't know how you have the best in the world, Dairy Queen, but it's seasonal, so they think everything's fresh, more fresh there. I don't know how you make an Oreo.
Also scarcity, though.
Yeah.
If it's seasonal.
That's true. Yeah. But I don't know how you make an Oreo cookie more fresh. You know what I mean? So
I think it's just knowing that you can't get it in the fall or whatever. So Old Time Feeling, that album with Jim James, is incredible. Teeth Marks is just astonishing.
Thank you.
And you cover a lot of hardcore topics on that record, like the opioid crisis and class inequity, and I think you aren't heavy-handed with it. Sometimes you're listening to the song and it kind of hits you 3/4 of the way through, like, this is what it's about. And I mean, I love Work Until I Die, in particular, because you said Alabama dinged you for that one, because you say, Song of the South, take a little piece of pie or they'll bust your mouth.
Yeah, but I couldn't, I had to pay up to say that line because it needed to be in there.
Did you know that they were going to come for that piece of the pie, so to speak, before you released the song? Or did it happen after you had released the song?
No, it was before. I was on Verve, which is a subsidiary of Universal for those two records, and they do everything. It's so much red tape and by the book, so they definitely made sure that they were going to be in the clear.
Okay, so that's even more badass, though, that you knew they were going to come for it, and you weren't like, okay, well, I guess we'll finagle our way around it, and like you needed to say that way.
Yeah, well, I wanted to use that line, so
yeah, and it counts.
Thank you.
I mean, it's worth it, but that's so awesome that you had that conviction. Just like, no, that's how I wanted to say it. And
it's like, if they can trademark Song of the South, then go for it, I guess.
Well, and that song is like punk rock, and then you have like your voice is amazing, by the way,
and
same.
It's
you have such a vocal identity that like no one's out here imitating your voice, and I want to know like what shaped that timbre, and it's not an affectation. I feel like, because I've just heard you sing in a bunch of different settings. So what do you attribute that quality to?
I grew up. I'm a recovering Southern Baptist, but my first concerts were going to church 3 days a week, and truly 3 days a week. And I discovered a few years ago, I was actually in Eastern Kentucky, and this woman, I just read a lot about this particular group of Baptists. They're called Old Regular Baptists. And if you can find some of their recordings online, but, a lot of people maybe call my voice like a high and lonesome or something like that, and you get that, especially in country or whatever, thrown around. But to me, high and lonesome sound probably started in the church. And if you want to know what I'm hearing exactly, think of like the Ralph Stanleys, the way he sings. And those are the type of voices, I feel like that style of singing, with the history of church camps moving across the state as people settled, that went with them. And so the way I learned how to sing was listening to the old ladies in my church. And you better believe, I've said this before, but if you're told that the Lord himself is going to hear you, you're going to sing like the Lord's going to hear you, And I think that's what is natural to me. It's just how I grew up hearing music.
There's just like a really cool vibrato that I couldn't recreate. I mean, it's obvious that you had to have been exposed to this as a child and heard that kind of vocal acrobatic. And you also, on this most recent album, Planning by the Signs, I think there is like a more chesty, lower range that you're settling into. But on previous works, like it was a little bit more falsetto and like that. And you do that on this record too.
I was blowing it up, whatnot. I was going really high,
but it was beautiful. There's
you.
a lot of texture there. And was that, how conscious of a decision was that to position your vocals a little bit different? And
it was super conscious, and I'll tell you, this might really disappoint a lot of people, but let's pretend I'm very sick. I've never canceled a show because of sickness. I'll get out there and, make it happen. But with my sets and my albums as they are and the way I sing on them so hard throughout the whole thing, I don't have any breaks, And I also have quite a bit of range. I do have I have a deep speaking voice, and I can have a very deep singing voice. And I just wanted to explore that kind of range that I have on this album, and also maybe if I get sick, make it a little easier on myself, you know?
Smart, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's very soothing, and it feels like the foundation is very strong. I feel like it supports me as a listener when I listen to it. And then those moments when you do kind of go to the rafters are that much more special in context.
Thank you.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We shared a trailer at Newport Folk Fest.
Used your bathroom a lot.
You sure
I'm so
did, and
sorry.
I was so happy every time you came in.
I'm like a grandmother. I've had to pee so much.
It's
Anyway.
right before the show. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And my son Graham was in there, and you got to
Yeah.
meet him. And you went on stage and did a killer set, and you did a cover by the Butthole Surfers called Pepper. And if you guys know this song, I won't even attempt to do it right now. I wish we could play a little piece of it. But it was so perfect in that setting, because Newport Folk Fest is legendary, and there's a reverence about it. And I won't say politeness, but there's just kind of like an obedience about it. And it sounded so appropriate in your set list, but also was a choice that I feel like only your brain would be able to make.
I just wanted people at Newport Folk Fest to go around saying butthole, you know?
Right, yeah, and here we are right now.
That was like kind of the whole point. I was like, I'm going to force a bunch of people who you wouldn't think just to go around and say butthole.
That's the most perfect motivation to cover a song I've ever heard. And people were saying it because it was very noteworthy, and
Thank you.
it's all over the internet. You can catch it, and you sounded just awesome on it. You would make the Butthole Surfers proud. I've said it now twice.
Did you say you sent it to them?
No, I said it. I
was
said,
like, you know the Butthole Surfers?
I said
wow.
We might all know them now.
Yeah.
And then you sang with MJ Lenderman, who I think is incredible. That's become one of our favorites in our household. But you were all over Newport Folk Fest.
I was all over Newport Folk Fest. I was running around crazy.
How do you feel after a weekend like that? When just in touring in general, but that's a pretty rigorous schedule. Just both your own performance, jumping on stage, you're seeing a lot of other artists. I don't know if that makes you anxious, or because it's fun for me, but sometimes I'm also like,
You like
gotta
sitting
be
in
on,
with people.
and I'm meeting someone I revere for the first time in this very high pressure situation, and you kind of feel like you can't mess it up. You're like, I want to be invited back next year, and
Totally.
just my social anxiety kind of kicks in those spaces. And I also feel like I thrive in those spaces too. It's just, it's a little dance.
I'm glad somebody thrives in those situations.
It's sort of like a peaks and valleys thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can't say that I thrive. I did say to my team before I went to Newport that I was going to take my shell off this year, because in those situations I can put on a pretty hard exterior, and it's nerves. A lot of people have this wonderful ability to have social anxiety and seem really approachable and cool about it. I don't. I'm actually pretty hard exterior when I get nervous, and I know that because people have told me, and I guess if a bunch of people tell you that, you should probably listen. It's probably true. But I do get nervous sitting in with people, especially because I can't remember lyrics very well. You know, luckily I'm a songwriter, so if I mess my own up, I can come up with something real quick.
That's right.
You know, but when you're singing someone else's songs, I'm really worried about that. And one of the last sets I sang on at Newport was with Lucius, who are fantastic harmonizers, and they wanted me to do this part that Madison Cunningham does on their song Impressions, and I really wanted to do so well, And that was absolutely excruciating for me because I was very intimidated to try to do perfect harmonies with them.
Right, and it's on a song that is well known, or I mean, I feel that way in any tribute shows. Like, it's kind of like singing the national anthem. You're like, this is an honor, and everyone knows this song.
Have you done that? Have you
Yes,
sang the national anthem?
I have.
I will never do that. And it's not because I'm not patriotic, you know, God bless
Oh
America,
no,
whatever. But
you do it right, and people are like, "Good, you should have done it right." You mess up, and they drag you over the coals, and I'm like, "Why am I doing this?"
I would
because
never.
it's an honor.
That is the
but-
bravest thing. I mean, that's very brave of you. I will never do that. I
Well,
will never sing the national anthem.
I have to do it soon, so thank you for
Really?
making me so
I'm sorry.
nervous.
Anyway,
Yeah.
basically, you're crazy, so
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
Every time you get through it, I'm like, I blacked out for 2 minutes. What happened?
Yeah.
But
It's a hard
the point
song,
is, like,
too.
you want to do right by covering another song that's
Yeah.
like, I just did this Grateful Dead thing. It's the same kind of vibe
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm part of like it's almost tribal.
Yeah.
And at Newport Folk Fest, I feel like there's similar moments in the weekend, like they pay tribute to John Prine. Well, John Prine is known for his just like lack of cadence. That's what made him so charming. And I'm like up here trying to be too mathematical about it sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like you were all over, and it's the appearance and kind of showing that you're part of the community, but it can be nerve-wracking. And
It is, and I'm not. I'll just be honest. I'm not good at letting myself be a part of the community all the time with social anxiety. I struggle with that. So I did my best, but
well, we were talking about social anxiety too in terms of just like social media. And I know you have a Substack, which I feel like is very appealing to me. That's why I like doing a podcast, because the idea of just trying to be summarily like, this is me in a tweet, I know that's aging me, or whatever, that's so concise,
yeah,
feels restrictive to me. And I like having this long form conversation because it mimics life more, where we can meander and kind of figure our way out together. That's why I like music. There's so much in between those phrases. And I think like you having a Substack and being able to like be the beautiful writer that you are.
long
and
form. Yeah.
Yes. Do you feel like you found like an outlet that fits, like that's sort of the key to your lock with that?
I have. It's recently I've kind of got to get out of this headspace of having a plan for it and just letting myself, you know, really free write what I want. I like to have a plan. And so my first entries, I go over an old album before I went as SG Goodman. And I had so much fun doing that. But I will say, I've never told a short story in my entire life. You know, I'm a true Southerner, front porch talker. And Substack it's made me enjoy the internet.
Yeah, and that's important because it is such a necessity.
Yeah.
And anyone who says otherwise in music, it's something else happened that popped off in their career that exempted them from that.
Yeah.
And I love that it provides that connection. And I think you're so funny on there.
Aw, thank you.
In a way that is unique to you. And I'm glad that there's something else that is there for people to uncover with your prose as well. And
Thank you.
I know that when people have asked you about your songwriting, you've actually not credited other musical influences, but more like literary influences. So do you feel like, is that an ambition of yours someday to
write?
Maybe write a novel?
I have one started.
Awesome.
But it's I've tried to have this goal of that be what, you know, how it is as a musician. You show up and wait. And I've thought that could be a really healthy outlet to work on that. I have my writing mentor, his name is Delray Phillips, and I would love to get a novel in front of him. I mean, he's not super old, but you know, he's an older man, and I would love for him, while he's here with me, to be able to absolutely rip me a new asshole in an edit, which he will. He's
what a
terrible.
privilege.
Yeah, exactly. So
The other writing I know you've famously done is your letters to Paul Schrader, the director and screenplay writer. He's done Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and you guys became pen pals, which is so interesting because he's sort of someone who's like done many examinations on like males having an existential crisis in his stories. Like, how did you guys? Sorry, it's funny because
no, it is.
It's
Yeah,
just so crazy.
Yeah,
that you got connected.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing and most undeserving thing. And you know, as far as like having someone like a Hollywood legend to all of a sudden take interest, but he found my music, and I had friends who were following him because he still is active on Facebook, and that's a trip if you follow him. And anyway, a friend of mine shared and was like, I cannot believe like my favorite director and screenwriter is like posting your music. I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, because I think I might have said this down in the green room. This is the first year of my adult life where I've owned a TV at my house, and I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and I actually don't watch movies or a lot of TV shows that could have an image logged in my brain, because I can't really control that, so I'm really protective of what I see. And so I was unfamiliar with all of Paul Schrader's work. And I ended up telling him that I don't know who you are. I know you've changed a lot of my friends' life who are in TV or want to be, you know, a director or whatever. But you're literally starting at ground zero with me, you know. And
He probably saw that as an opportunity. I mean, he probably loved it.
well, I think so. He's an interesting character, and yeah, we've worked on a couple of his films together. I've been on 2 soundtracks of his. Well, I had this artist Mariba covered my song "Space and Time" for his movie with Sigourney Weaver. Yeah, okay, thank you. See, I don't watch TV, but anyway, or movies. And yeah, I know, but I know she's a big deal, right?
Tyler Childers covered that song too.
He did.
Yeah.
Tyler's a big deal. But Mariba does this crazy R&B version of Space and Time that was produced by the guy from Blood Orange, that band. Devin Hines is his name. But yeah, my odd relationship with Paul that came out of literally nowhere. I guess the internet can do cool things sometimes. I felt so unworthy because my friends who have idolized him, I'm the one who's talking to him, who literally could care less about his movies.
You aided him in creating the feeling that he was trying to convey in his movies. Music, a movie without the right music is not going to be nearly as impactful. So
It's true.
you gave him a tool that he needed, and you got to have dinner with him and Bruce Springsteen. Which is kind of an insane claim to be able to make.
Yes, and that is another thing where I'm like...
But you had seen The Boss before. You'd heard of The Boss.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I do know. Well, I've been fortunate enough to see both of my parents' crushes live. Stevie Nicks, my dad's, and Bruce Springsteen, my mom's. And, yeah, I was on tour. I was in Carborough, North Carolina, and I get... One interesting thing about Paul is a lot of times when you receive an email for him, he doesn't write anything in the actual text. He puts the whole message just in the subject line. It's very strange.
Efficient, though.
Yeah, but this message actually had, you know, some meat to it. And he said, I'm coming to your show in Freehold, New Jersey, and you're going to go have dinner with Bruce and me afterwards at his house. And he said, I sent Space and Time to Bruce, and he really likes it.
Wow.
And he said Bruce Springsteen the second time he said Bruce. And I was just in this hotel bed actually suffering from the bursitis, bringing it back around.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, first flare up. And called my manager, and I was just like, I don't know if this is real, but I was playing Tiny Desk after that show. And I had been freaking out about that for months. And I didn't know if we should go have dinner because I was scared I was going to get sick. And anyway, my manager goes, you know what? One day you'll forget about your Tiny Desk, but you will not ever forget about having dinner with Bruce Springsteen. And he's definitely right so far.
It's legendary. And I'm sure Tiny Desk was awesome because it was.
It was. It was good. It was fine. But I was really tired. We drove back. I had to get a rental car because my band was in my van. They had to drive back to D.C. after our show, and my manager and I took the rental car over to Bruce Springsteen's house, which was just like, I think my manager was way more nervous and uncool about it than me. In fact, while we were going through Bruce Springsteen's driveway, which is a very long driveway, I looked over at my manager and I was like, are you going to be okay, like chill about this? He was just, yeah, it was such a sweet.
He's the boss. There's a stained glass picture of him right there. So,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
my God!
he's
Yeah, there
iconic.
it is.
Yeah,
it's crazy, and
he
he's
likes
wearing
your music.
mules.
Yeah.
What are those?
Loafers.
Yeah, he's
I don't
wearing some
remember him
loafers.
that way.
I think they're Velcro too, over there. That's crazy.
Well, it's so cool that you got to do that, and
Thank
I mean,
you.
you've been able to do so many amazing things in your career. Writing a score for films is something that I've always wanted to do, and I can't wait to read your novel that will someday come out. I know you're about to go on tour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the day after tomorrow with Bursa is going to be up and ready. What are
Yep.
you excited about coming up?
You know, I think I've turned a corner in my career where I've accepted that this is what I do for a living. I think I fought it for so long because I am a small town girl. I really missed. I felt like I was missing out on everything in my little town, like with my friend group, you know, coming back home, and because I've been gone so long, I'm not getting invited to something because they don't know if I'm there or not, and getting my feelings hurt, or not being able to grow a garden. And I think this year I've really accepted that this is what I do for a living and get a lot of joy out of it. So I think this is going to be, you know, I'm excited to tour, and I'm
Amen.
excited to tour this album, like for real.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, I needed to hear that too. It's true. I
Yeah.
keep planning gardens and coming home. I'm like, everything's dead.
Yeah,
But I
get
love
it,
what I
though.
do. I love what you do.
Thank you.
And I'm happy you're enjoying touring because you kind of need to not be afraid of taking breaks
Yeah.
sometimes. But if you love it and this is the time where your body and your mind can do it, then go for it. What is your favorite thing about being a woman in this industry?
What is my favorite thing about being a woman in this industry?
Try and think of the positive, okay?
I was like, okay.
That's why I end with that.
Here we go. Yeah.
We got it. What is your favorite thing? Sometimes it's not the
favorite-
easiest question to answer.
Yeah, it's not.
We're gonna edit all this out anyway. Don't worry.
It's like, what do you want, the real scoop if we're going to edit it? No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. I think, you know what? I'll say this. My band, they're all a bunch of dudes, and they're great. And since I was a real tomboy as a child, and really my closest friends my whole life have been men. And since I have become, a touring musician, I've developed, for the first time in my life, like more girlfriends than I ever have. It's actually been more natural to meet other women that I connect with over music or just personality or whatever. So I've been able to find some really close friends in this. And yeah, maybe that's, I don't know, like just getting like women fellowship. Is that a weird?
No, not at all.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I've felt it is totally there. I just kind of needed to be more proactive about seeking it out.
Yeah.
I think what we do can feel very visible, and like everyone should know what is going on, but we're actually all kind of operating in our own little silos unless we reach out and do this, what we're doing, and share each other's bathrooms and things like that, because music is our bond, and we are kind of taking a path that's a little bit different, but it brings us joy. We hope it brings you guys joy. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
Thank you. SG Goodman, everybody.
Thank you all.